Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and welcome to issue number 2 of The Division Weekly. This is a pretty exciting issue, guys, because we are just days away from the launch of the beta. Thousands upon thousands of us gamers, you and me, will be becoming Division members for the very first time and heading into the frozen wastes of New York City to experience the Division firsthand. Very, very exciting to sort of celebrate this and to make sure that a few more of you guys have an opportunity to get your hands on the beta. I've managed to get my hands on 4 beta keys to give away to you guys. These beta keys can be activated on any of the 3 platforms that the beta will be going live on. All you need to do to go ahead and get your hands on one is post a comment down in the description below. Tell me what firearm you want to see most in the Division. It can be one that we've already seen in gameplay footage, or it can be one that we haven't seen that you're hoping will show up when you're out there looting corpses in New York City. I'm gonna go ahead and select 4 of you guys at random. I'll send you a message over on YouTube with the key as well as the instructions on how to activate it. Now, I do need to point out you will need a Uplay account, so you're either gonna have to create one or already have one. If you're not okay with creating a Uplay account, please don't enter the giveaway. I don't want to give the key to someone who's not going to be able to use it and, possibly have someone who could use it miss out on playing the beta this weekend. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick it off, as always, with the fan art focus. We've got an incredibly detailed and gorgeous image by Faust8 for the fan art focus this week. Look at this thing. It is actually breathtaking. If I could print this out just massively, like a 5 by 4 poster and frame it, I totally would. I love the 1-point perspective here. The level of detail on this thing is just incredible. We've got all of the wrinkles on the tarp. We've got, just a sense of moisture and fog in the air coming off of the snow. Just a beautiful, beautiful image. We've even got these lots of Christmas lights still hanging up in New York City, which is definitely a theme in the Division. And in the foreground here, we have what appears to be a Division member holding up an orange flare and what looks to be some sort of flag, maybe calling in for help or just looking for some backup, some support for a big fight ahead down the road there. Either way, super detailed. You killed it, Faust8. I'm continuously blown away by the fan art for this game, and also the support that the community already has for a game that isn't out. It's been that way, I think, since they revealed the game 3 years ago, and it's crazy that the communities have held up for this long. People are still here. They're still ready to be communities and clans and fire teams looking to play the Division come March. Very exciting. Ubisoft should be really happy that they have this much of a following already, and hopefully they take that to heart and they make sure that this is the best possible game come launch on all platforms. Alright, let's move forward with the discussion data for this week. Just wanted to make another quick mention of the interactive map that Ubisoft launched for the Division. I'll have it linked down in the description below. Just a cool Google Maps-esque experience for the Division. Now, not all of the stuff is there. They actually plan on adding more content to it over time, but right now you can check out the RPG basics. You can scroll around, the sort of main sort of headquarters for the Division members. You can go to the first operating base. You can just learn a little bit about the game. I think they did a really great job with that. Sadly, it's not available in all countries. I've had reports that it's not available in Germany as well as Argentina. For those of you guys who are stranded out there, go ahead and click the link down in the description below. I made a video on it so you can check out the map and see what it's all about. I think it is definitely worth a look. They've also tied in some of their podcasts that they've recorded with members of the development team directly into the virtual map experience. Awesome job on that. I just wish they would make it available in more countries moving into the future. So let's talk about what is probably the hardest hitting and biggest piece of news for the Division in a long time, and that is the reveal of the minimum and recommended PC specs. Yes, I know, there's so many PC people out there who are just trying to figure out, can I run this game? What am I going to need? What's this game going to look like? Because obviously, that is the sort of speculation that goes into looking at PC specs. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the minimum configuration that you're going to need to run the Division over on your PC. Supported OSs include Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. You are going to need 64-bit versions, people. It's time to step out of the 32-bit era. If this is the game that you are really looking forward to playing, you're going to have to do some changes if you're sitting in the Stone Ages. Processor, Intel Core i5-2400 and AMD FX 6100 or better, obviously, for both of those. 6 GB of RAM. Once again, if you're still running 4 gigs, get yourself another stick of RAM, plug it in your motherboard, and get yourself ready to play The Division. Video cards, GeForce GTX 560 with 2 GB of VRAM, or the current equivalent, GeForce GTX 760, AMD Radeon HD 7770 with 2 GB of VRAM or better. Now, when it comes to notebook support, they pretty much just came out and said laptop models of those desktop cards may work in most instances, but you're just going to be playing it by other people's experiences. The best thing I can say, if you really do have a laptop gaming or otherwise that has a graphics card that fits in there, is wait. See what other people are saying, look at benchmarks that people like Total Biscuit, Joker Productions are doing, and really just kind of listen to what they have to say so you don't go out and spend $60 on a game that you can't even run. DirectX 11 will be a requirement, 40 gigabytes of available hard space. It's a decently sized game. And then we've just got some nonsense stuff. Obviously, full controller support, mouse and keyboard support, headsets. You're going to need a multiplayer, an internet connection of some sort to play the multiplayer, obviously. And that's just how it's going to have to be. Let's take a look at the recommended configuration. Same supported OS, once again 64-bit. Processor kicking it up a little bit here. We're going to be looking at an i7 3770 or AMD FX 8350 or better, 8 gigabytes of RAM. You're going to need a GTX 970 or AMD Radeon R9 290 or better. Same thing applies with the notebooks here, and then the rest is all the same. Now, I do want to talk briefly, we saw that jump with the processors, i5 to an i7, we got a GTX 560 and 7770 on the Radeon to 290 and a 970. The game sounds like it's going to be scalable. If I had to do a little bit of speculation based on my knowledge with PC gaming and hardware and software, it looks like it's going to be a scalable game, and that's a good thing. Now, on top of this, we've also got some screenshot releases for the PC that were supposedly captured in-engine, not in-game, in 4K. I was only able to actually find one of these images in close to 4K. I just grabbed it in 1920 by 1080 instead. The other image, couldn't find it in 4K anywhere. I don't know what Ubisoft made the mistake of there, but this was actually the images that they launched on their forums, and they didn't actually have them in 4K on the forums. So the first image here, we've got a group of Division members walking down an incredibly detailed and really atmospheric street filled with garbage, snow, and, broken down vehicles. It looks stunning. If the game looks half this good on your PC, whew, there will be some drooling, there will be some jaw dropping, there will be smiles. The second image here, parking garage sort of combat sequence. Again, this is the really low resolution image. I could not find this even close to 1080p. We're looking at like 860 by something here, but the atmosphere is there. The atmosphere is there. We've got some crazy reflection and lighting effects going on. This was the big thing for me, and all the footage that we've seen of the Xbox One version. Obviously, it doesn't look as good as people's PCs. Most PCs are probably going to be able to run it, especially those on the higher end. But the atmosphere is there. Like, where it matters, they've done a good job on nailing that. It doesn't have the craziest textures, the craziest resolution on the textures, but the game still looks good and the atmosphere is nailing it. And that is what is most important to me. Now, I'm going to leave up for you guys the supported NVIDIA and AMD cards list at the time of launch. Obviously, they're going to be adding support. And of course, there may be beta drivers going live from NVIDIA and AMD after launch. Really, the best thing to do as a PC gamer, if you're not sure about your rig, if you're new to PC gaming, is to wait, guys. Don't buy the game at launch. Maybe the beta will be a great testing point for you, but do your research. Check out channels like Total Biscuit, check out his port reports, check out Joker Productions, Linus Tech Tips, whatever you may be looking into, and look for the benchmarks. Jay's 2 cents, Linus Tech Tips, Total Biscuit. Those are really the three I recommend. I'll post them down in the description below. If you're a PC gamer, if you're new to PC gaming, you're looking to get into PC gaming for the sake of the Division, those are the 3 channels I would go to. They're 3 of the best PC gaming channels on YouTube right now. Strongly recommend giving them a go, and I'm sure that they'll be able to give you the answers to the question that you have to decide whether or not you can run the Division after launch. All right, let's move forward. I briefly want to make some concrete stuff. I want to make some things concrete regarding frame rates. Now, the PC has already been said it will be unlockable. So what that means to me is that they're probably going to lock it at 30 FPS to match the console frame rates, which is stupid, but you will be able to unlock it through a toggle in-game. You won't have to go into the files and mess about all Need for Speed, Most Wanted style. It's silly. I don't know why they ever do that. Like, just don't lock it. I know it's like a convenience thing in development, but that's not how you develop a PC game. And I know this is a port, but I know most people are just going to be happy. There's a toggle to unlock it in game. We'll have to see when the game goes live just how good this port ends up being. As for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, they were both locked at 30 frames per second. Now, when you hear the word locked at 30 frames per second, that's a good thing. I can deal with that. I don't actually mind 30 FPS on my consoles when it's locked, because honestly, the games always feel wicked smooth. And considering this isn't like a PvP focused experience, much like Destiny's Crucible, which I would love to have at 60 FPS, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not even that worried about the Dark Zone. It's just a different kind of experience. I'm okay with 30 FPS, and they've kind of just came out and said, you know, to do 60 FPS would be a big compromise to the visual integrity of the game. You know, a lot of people would like to see that compromise, but I'm gonna be all right. My personal opinion, I'm okay with it. If I really want 60 FPS and great looking gameplay, I'm just gonna go on PC. It's just what you get when you own a console. That's the end of it. Now, in terms of the resolution for both of the consoles, I haven't seen anything for sure, but I imagine the Xbox is probably going to be running at 900p, upscaled to 1080, while the PlayStation 4 will probably be native at 1080p. It's just been the nature of these two consoles since launch. The PlayStation 4 obviously has a little bit more power with that RAM upgrade, and that's just how the cookie seems to crumble. Let's move forward and do a bit of discussion here. I want to talk about burning out and complaining, because they go hand in hand with larger, more persistent style experiences like The Division, like Destiny. You always have that group of people after the launch of the game who have played the game religiously, like 6 to 7 hours a day for the past month. They end up racking up thousands of hours in a very short period of time, and then they complain the game didn't offer enough content. This is something that I do feel happened with Destiny. I felt Destiny was a pretty deep game, and I got a lot of time out of it. But unlike most people, I was okay with stepping away from it, much like I'm doing now, and then coming back to it when new content came into the game. It's a difficult thing when you make a persistent world and you don't just plan on having sequels, when you start talking about DLC and things of that nature, which we already know the Division's going to have. They're already talking about a season pass and everything. They already have a $100 edition that comes with the season pass. You set yourself up for a lot of people expecting to get 2 years of gameplay, you know, out of your game without any DLC. This is a problem that I think it's more on the consumer side. And I think a lot of it does come from people who burn out. Like I said, they play the game a lot, and then they don't actually realize that they just got 500 hours out of a $60 experience, and they then have an issue with that. Now, I'm not one to ever really care about the whole price to amount of time I spend on the game comparison, but it works for a lot of people, and that's why I make mention of it. If I can get 300 hours out of the Division in in the first month, like, you know, or in, you know, early game, the first year, whatever, that's insane. I will be more than happy with that. I'm sure there'll be a ton of great moments that I had. We've just become so insatiable as a society in a lot of ways, to be honest. And I think some people will just play games because it's like this time passing thing. They don't really enjoy, and you know, it's like eating food. There's that person who just kind of shoves the food down their throat, never tastes it, never takes the time to chew it or smell it and experience it. And then there's a person who does. And I like to do that with my food, and I've really been trying to make that a part of my gameplay experiences. Been really trying to absorb the game, experience it, and then make memories of those experiences and those moments. Not just let it be something that passes by. Obviously, the game has a part in helping you create those experiences and creating those memories. If the Division does that, that's what I'm most happy about. It's very much a quality over quantity component for me. And I do believe the Division is going to give us a game that is going to have a pretty good chunk of content, and we're going to be able to spend a decent amount of time in it. But I'm not one of those people who is sitting there complaining about what Destiny did and then saying that the Division needs to be able to last until the end of 2016. That's insane. It's insane that you'd ever expect that, and it's insane to think that. If you go in with those expectations, you'll put probably 500 hours in the Division and you'll be disappointed. Don't do that. Now, I'm not saying that you need to limit the amount of time that you spend playing the game. If you have that much time to spend on the game, go ahead. But if you played the game for 500 hours, don't give it a bad review. It's one of those things you see on Steam all the time. This person's got 3,000 hours in a game, and then they tell people they shouldn't buy it. You played it for 3,000 hours. Was it cocaine to you? I mean, you can admit if it was just a drug and you didn't actually enjoy it, that's okay. And Anyways, let's move off that topic. Just something I felt like I had to kind of discuss roughly. I'm sure everybody will have their own thing to say about it. Let's move on to the important stuff. Let's move on to the viewer-submitted discussion, of which we have 2 awesome pieces. First and foremost, let's talk about Time to Kill by Fuzzle. Fuzzle HC submitted a topic, basically, you know, talking about time to kill in shooters and RPGs. There's a ton of people out there who, just because this game has a Tom Clancy name, I've seen them discussing and saying they want like one headshots. Oh, because of realism and it's an immersion breaker. Listen, it's a video game. It already is breaking immersion. You're in New York City. You have grenades that heal people by shooting them at the ground next to each other. This isn't a game aiming for hardcore realism. That's not at all what The Division is about. It's an RPG that is aiming to be a hell of a lot of fun and also a third-person shooter. This is something that we're seeing all over advertising, all over Ubisoft's website for The Division. The game has a focus on being an RPG before anything else. When they talk about The Division, when Ubisoft, the people making the game, talk about The Division, they always start off by saying RPG, RPG. That's what this game is. If you start having one headshot kills, it's not the same game. Like, it's not an RPG then. You're just mowing through enemies. Like, can you imagine how much less interesting fights would be with a lot of the legendary enemies that we would see if you could just one headshot all their mobs? Like, this isn't the type of game they're trying to craft. This isn't Rainbow Six. This isn't Ghost Recon. They're trying to make an RPG-focused shooter, much like Destiny did in a lot of ways. You know, despite the fact that Destiny was a shooter before it was an RPG, it still had that RPG sense to its shooting component. And I'm sorry, but that's what makes the combat in Destiny so good, is the fact that it's not just about landing one headshot kills. 2 headshots do more damage. Yes, there is critical damage for headshots in Destiny as well as in The Division. So the game does reward players for precision shooting. But you throw that all into characters that have more damage, more health, that are so-called bullet sponges, and that's what creates those combat moments. That moment when you have to take out that guy from the Rikers, or that, you know, the dude from the Cleaners who's got the flamethrower, and you're trying to clean up ads, you're trying to focus fire on him, you're trying to coordinate. That's where the chaos comes into play. That's where the coordination, the teamwork comes into play, and that's what makes the combat experience special. You start throwing in one headshots and realistic gun damage, and you throw all that out the window. They're not trying to make a shooter. They're not trying to make a realism-based third-person shooter. This is an RPG. If you can get that into your head, you will decide whether or not The Division is a game for you. But don't expect them to completely change what their game is because something about realism and immersion breaking. Games are meant to be played for fun. I hate even hearing people use the word realism. Unless we're talking about like Arma or DCS, I don't want to hear the word realism. It's called gameplay balance because you want to create a game that is fun. Get realism out of your head. It doesn't belong here. These are video games. Most of them are designed to be enjoyable experiences. They're not designed around realism. Now, are they bringing in people from the military to try and just make things seem more authentic? Yes, and that is the word that I like to use, authentic. They're trying to make sure the weapons appear authentic, the gear and the tactics appear authentic, but this is still very much their game set in a universe that doesn't exist in reality, and they want to make sure it's a hell of a lot of fun. There you go, my thoughts on Time to Kill. Thank you, Fuzzle. I really wanted to talk about that one. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm happy to hear that other people wanted to have that discussion as well. Now let's talk about Dark Zone DLC. This was a question submitted by Kyle Deal. Basically, he was asking if Brooklyn and possibly other locations are in fact DLC in the future, would we also see new Dark Zones for each of those locations? This would just make sense to me because I think the biggest thing is the scaling of the level within the Dark Zone, right? So if you move to a new area of the map like Brooklyn opens up, they're probably also going to, increase the level cap. That would just make sense to me. It would be a good time to increase the level cap to add in higher level equipment and gear, give players new stuff to earn. That's a big part of DLC in an RPG-like experience. The player progression is very important. If a player goes to a new zone on the map and they're just picking up the same equipment at the same level, it's kind of going to take away some of the purpose of being there. So it would make sense for them to increase the overall level cap of that zone and then also throw in a Dark Zone that also has an increased level cap. hopefully that's what they do. Plus, it'll be cool to have a new environment. You know, they're basically adding in another team deathmatch style environment. I know that's not actually what the Dark Zone is. It's very much a PvE and PvP focused experience. And I can't wait till I can actually talk to you guys about it and tell you why I think it's so amazingly well done. That's all I can say. NDA. Beta, please come soon. But it would make sense. Obviously, I don't have any confirmation on that, but my speculation, this is also tying in with our weekly speculation for the week, is that it would make sense to do that. With any of the new zones that open up, it would give them the opportunity to give us a bit of variety by adding in a new Dark Zone, in a new location, in a new environment with a new level cap. And I would be 100% on board for that. All right, guys, that does it for issue number 2 of The Division Weekly, the final episode before the launch of the beta. So excited. So the questions that I have for you guys to start submitting as we move into the beta and into next week's episode, which I'm hoping I can make sure that these land every single Monday. That's the plan here. I want you guys to talk to me about the beta when the time comes. So come back here after you've played the beta and submit those questions. Any discussion or thoughts or topics that you want to have regarding the beta. Next week's episode is going to be a beta-themed episode. We're going to talk about everything about the beta. We're going to talk about topics submitted by you guys. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be hype, and I'm very much looking forward to it. If you guys have any other questions or any other thoughts you'd like to share regarding the show or the Division, feel free to leave them down in the description below. Be sure to go ahead, leave them down in the comment section below, and be sure to check out all of the links in the description. Check out that fan art by Faust, check out the interactive map, and be sure to post a comment and tell me what firearm you want to see most in the Division if you'd like to have the opportunity to get your hands on one of those juicy beta keys. I'll see you in the next one.